Peacemaking Principles, Unit 4, Lesson 6. Welcome to Conflict Resolution and Peacemaking, the class that teaches you how to manage interpersonal conflict and drama for yourself and others. I'm your instructor, David Lowry. In our last session, we discussed principles for handling difficult people. Again, we want to stress that even difficult people are worthy of our peacemaking efforts. Often they resort to being problematic because they either lack conflict management skills or have come to believe that no one cares about their feelings and needs. The difficult person allows us to test and refine our peacemaking skills. Based on the lessons in this unit of study, we want to offer a few other principles we believe will help peacemakers better understand and manage the conflicts and dramas associated with difficult people. Give others the benefit of the doubt. When it comes to difficult people, it's essential to maintain neutrality. As we described in the second lesson of this series, people often describe others as being problematic for little more than disagreeing or questioning something. The verbally abusive person they describe may be more perceptual than factual. Always check the claims of difficulty against what has been said and done. It may well be that when you speak with the other person, you will hear an entirely different story. Use the 80% rule. Because people are so different, it isn't always easy to determine when someone's behavior is due to natural differences between people. If you wonder if someone's actions are due to personality differences or potential psychological abnormalities, apply the 80% rule. Ask yourself, would 80% of the population or people I know do this? If not, the behavior is probably not due to ordinary personality differences. Own your own side of the street. Here's a truism. When we are angry, there's a good reason for it. When others are angry, they're being unreasonable. The truth is, most people believe they have good reasons for their anger and upset, even if we don't always agree with them. Sometimes we encounter difficulty with others because of what we have said or done. We may brush off our actions as entirely justified, but as peacemakers, all parties must own their part of a dispute, however minimal. The fact that someone is angry with us does not absolve us from our responsibility to correct what we have done. In my mediation work, I've often asked this common question. In your opinion, what percentage of this dispute is your fault? And the answer is always 0. People have a difficult time acknowledging how their actions escalate a dispute. Refusing to acknowledge your part in a dispute only increases anger in other people. Should you be only responsible for 10% of a dispute, you are still 100% responsible for your 10%. Sometimes it only takes one person to break the ice of the resolution process. It can happen when someone honestly says they're sorry for their part of the misunderstanding. We must remember that taking responsibility for our actions is not based on another's acceptance of our actions or apologies. It's helpful if they accept our apology, and even better if they apologize, but it's not vital. Create a thoughtful pause. Conflicts often begin when one person says or does something that triggers the other to take offense at what was said or done. This stimulus response action is like entering a room where we see cookies on a plate, then eating without thinking about it. Conflicts can be like that. When triggered, we often react impulsively and without thinking. However, between any stimulus and response is a brief period where we may choose how we will respond. Peacemakers learn that they gain additional time by making thoughtful replies and widening the gap between the stimulus and the response. We can do this simply by asking a question when the stimulus triggers us. When triggered, ask, "What are you trying to say here?" Another favorite is, "Tell me more." Both statements effectively buy the time you need to widen the gap and make a thoughtful pause. Avoid reactivity. As we mentioned in Lesson 5 of this series, reactivity is when someone shows an adverse reaction or emotional response to what somebody has said or done. Reactivity almost always escalates the conflict. We avoid reactivity through mindfulness. We hold the principled middle ground by reminding ourselves to stay calm and avoid getting sucked into the other's drama. We must not take what people say or do personally. Work cooperatively. When we meet difficult people, we may feel overwhelmed and wonder how we'll be able to work with someone who is so dysfunctional. While it isn't easy, the key is demonstrating a relational communication style that encourages cooperation. Cooperation means that we keep in mind that we matter, the other person matters, and the problem before us matters. Our goal is to focus on all three. Remember, the effective relationship is built one relational transaction at a time. Even when the other person isn't trying, we can still score a victory each time we keep our side of the transaction positive. Additionally, we resist our competitive instincts in favor of cooperative solutions that benefit all concerned. Remain problem focused. When face to face with a difficult person, we may focus on their drama instead of the problem before us. Separating the drama from the problem allows us an opportunity to unravel the conflict. Many times, the solution to a problem is relatively simple. By keeping things relational, we begin chipping away at the emotional baggage that has been added to the problem. Though we may inwardly resent the drama, it often drops away naturally as we solve the problem relationally. Give a fair hearing. Listening is often the most overlooked of all tools available to peacemakers. As people speak, they provide us with rich verbal and nonverbal information. This data includes moods, emotions, and hidden needs. Good listening is a skill that takes a lifetime to develop effectively. Even so, the basics of good listening begin as we are willing to hear what another person has to say by setting aside our judgments, emotions, and desires to speak. Notice we use the word hear instead of listen. There's a difference between hearing and impatient listening. Giving a fair hearing involves listening to what someone says, noticing what they do not say, and giving both due consideration. As we do this, we acknowledge the feelings of others. Acknowledgement means that we accept the feelings of others as understandable and valid for them without judgment on our part. According to Marsha Linham, we summarize what is being said and offer our best guess as to how a person might feel based on the content and context of what is being said. She cautions us that sitting with extreme emotions isn't always easy. Describe problems without judgment. Or evaluation is the tendency to add personal interpretation to what we see and hear instead of objectively describing events. Remember, we trigger defensiveness in others when we show anger, rude behavior, or resort to blaming, accusing, or exaggerating what someone has said or done. When people feel overly challenged, criticized, or attacked, even the kindest person will become anxious and unreasonable. Empower people to solve their problems and don't do it for them. As peacemakers spot instances of verbal abuse, passive aggressive behavior, and the like, there's a temptation to advise others on how to handle this form of drama. We caution against this and recommend that you remain a neutral person. In the dreaded drama triangle, advice giving, especially unsolicited advice, is considered a form of enabling and should be avoided. However, as you help two or more people resolve their difficulties, you can create an environment that minimizes future opportunities for abuse. We have examined the concept of difficult people and the role they play in creating drama and conflict. This chapter highlights the qualities of bullies, verbal abusers, passive aggressive individuals, narcissists, and 4 types of attacking behaviors. We have encouraged you to avoid labeling others as difficult unless they intentionally or unintentionally refuse to participate in relational processes to solve problems or use dysfunctional approaches to get their way. While we should not typecast or label people according to their traits, knowing about various characteristics and dysfunctional life practices is helpful. Thank you for listening to this series of podcasts. We encourage you to download a copy of today's script and complete a short quiz on this lesson as quickly as possible.